Hello, welcome back to Empowered Esquire TV. It has been a moment. It has been a moment. So here's what happened. I went on vacation, and quite frankly, it was difficult. It was difficult to get back into the swing of things, and I thought about our relationship, and I just realized that you just mean too much to me for me to walk away. So I'm back. How have you been? I hope you've had a wonderful, I don't know, however long it's been. Today is Monday, so I hope you're having a wonderful, amazing, marvelous Monday. I am considering starting something that I want to call Motivational Mondays on this channel, where we kind of just have a little powwow. It will probably be in YouTube Shorts, and I kind of give you the mantra that I'm using for the week and share that with you. But anywho, now that we've kind of talked about where I've been and I've welcomed you back, we're going to have a quick conversation about Kobebryant's net worth and things of that nature before we get into what happened with his wife and this whole tug of war that they're having over his estate. So in the meantime, I'm going to say hello in the chat. Hi to everyone in the chat. Okay. And I'm going to give everyone a moment just to come into the room. Usually I have a video queued up for you to kind of allow everyone to come on in. But wouldn't you believe it? The Kobebryant video that I had queued up right before I went live, it started to be glitchy and weird. And I'm thinking, what great timing. I had a whole video queued up for you about his life and his net worth and things like that. But nonetheless, such is life. So I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee. And in a minute or so, I will just start to kind of tell you what I found on Forbes.com in regards to Kobebryant's net worth. I probably will do a share screen so you can see everything that I'm going through. We'll talk about his net worth and then we'll dive in. So before I take a sip of my coffee, let me give you a quick rundown of what we're discussing today. So as you can see in the title, we have quite a bit to cover, right? We have Kobebryant, we have Peppa, we have CMurder, and then I also have some topics that were requested by subscribers. I did a little YouTube shorts kind of saying, hey, if there's anything you'd like to chat about, let me know. And so I actually have a surprise for my subbies, as I have pulled some of those topics to include in our live today. So hello to everyone in the chat. Hi to KKC. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, thank you for the encouragement. It's difficult to come back after a vacay. It's really, you have to kind of ease back into that groove, especially when you're such a, hustle, grind person like me and you're so on the move. When you finally slow down, it's an adjustment to kind of go back into it, right? But anywho, I'm going to share my screen. We will discuss Kobebryant's net worth and then hop into why his mother-in-law sued his wife. So here we go. Share my screen. We're going to Forbes.com, by the way. All right, so here we are on Forbes.com. Okay, now let me address this before we get into Kobe's net worth. I'm sure you are thinking that Forbes has had some issues in the past with their veracity. And you're right. You're totally right about that. Forbes very often accepts questionable documentation, and then they announce that someone is a billionaire allegedly. And then they have to retract that statement, allegedly, right? So we understand that Forbes can be a bit liberal with certain facts, okay? And listen, as long as you know what is going on in whatever source you're using, then it's fine, right? You know the veracity and or any potential issues with your source, and you can keep that in mind. Okay, so let's dive in. So Kobebryant, as of 2016, he had a net worth of $350 million. He is considered to be number 33 on the list of 2016 Americans who are the richest entrepreneurs under the age of 40. All right, so now we see that at the time of his passing in 2020, he actually was worth an estimated $600 million. Okay. They have some things about his career, mentioning that he retired in 2016 as an all-time leading scorer with 5 NBA titles. They then discussed that his $680 million in earnings from playing salary and endorsements was kind of the culmination of what he earned during his career. They then mentioned that Bryant and entrepreneur Jeff Steibel set up a $100 million VC fund in 2016 called Bryant Steibel to invest in technology, media, and data companies. What is a VC fund, you ask? My answer for you is a venture capitalist or venture capitalism fund. Okay? All right, they have some other Forbes lists that he's on, and they just kind of do a little breakdown for you of how much money he brought in endorsements and who his sponsors were. They also give an interesting little illustration here to kind of show you his net worth over time. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hop back into the chat, say hello to everyone. So if you missed it, and you're just tuning in, we just did a quick synopsis of Kobebryant's net worth because we are about to dive into this fight for his estate. So for those of you who maybe aren't very familiar with what happened after Kobebryant's passing, there were a number of people that were actually related to his wife who were, I guess you could say, being provided for in some way by Kobebryant, right? And now common sense would have you think that his death would not alter that very much, as that is his wife's family, right? And allegedly he was estranged from his own family. Well, surprise, surprise. It turns out that when Kobebryant passes away, his wife allegedly tried to, tighten the purse strings and withdraw a lot of the support that he was giving to members of her family. One of those people being her mother. That's where the lawsuit comes in. So I am going to go back to my share screen, and we're going to look at, from a local LA news station, some details about Vanessa Bryant being sued by her mother. So here we are on KTLA, and we see Vanessa Bryant reaches settlement in lawsuit filed by her mother. So let's get into it. Let's see why. So we know that they've settled the lawsuit, right? She filed a notice of unconditional settlement. Now, here's an interesting teaching point. There is a reason that they are not just saying settlement, right? There is a reason that they are saying unconditional settlement. She is waiving, and by she, I mean Sofia Urbieta, there's an I there, Lane. She is waiving all of her future claims. She is waiving any ability to ever try to sue Vanessa Bryant for any claim that stems from the facts that she alleged in this claim. Okay? Unconditional settlement. So Lane filed a notice of unconditional settlement Wednesday in Orange County Superior Court, indicating that a request for dismissal would be filed within 45 days. Terms of the settlement were not released. So that's all typical, right? She filed a notice to the court saying, we have reached a settlement. I will be withdrawing my lawsuit. All part of the course. Let's get into what the allegations were. Lane accused Vanessa Bryant of fraud in a lawsuit filed on December 15th, alleging that she had worked for years without pay as a personal assistant and nanny to her daughter's family, and that Bryant's husband, Lakers legend Kobebryant, had promised to support Lane financially before he died in a helicopter crash on January 26th, 2020. So representatives for Miss Lane then go on to say, unfortunately, Kobebryant's promise did not see the light of day, as he is now deceased, and Vanessa Bryant took each and every step she could to void and cancel all of Kobe's promises. All righty, so there you have it. We know why her mother sued her. We do know they've now settled it, right? But we know why her mother sued her. So let's dive into the allegations. Now, in these allegations, we're seeing the mother, Miss Lane, saying that she worked for years without pay as a nanny, as a personal assistant, pretty much as an aide in the Kobebryant household. She then goes on to say that Kobebryant promised to take care of her, right? Now, here's the thing. If in fact Kobebryant had made a promise to take care of Miss Lane, there is a way that he could have ensured that in the event of his death, Miss Lane is provided for. So, if in fact there was a way, which there is, that Kobebryant could have ensured that Miss Lane was provided for in the event of his death, and he chose not to do that, does that say something? Is there an indication that perhaps Miss Lane was, as we have said, liberal with the words that Kobebryant used, right? Or is there an indication that Kobebryant had so much trust in his wife that he just trusted that if something were to happen to him, she would ensure that that promise was kept, right? Those are kind of the two insinuations that are underneath the surface here. But no matter how you look at this, he could have, of course, within his will and within his estate plan, specifically mentioned that he wanted Sophia Lane to be taken care of. And in fact, if he did, we can imagine that there would have been no lawsuit, right? So it seems as though either Kobebryant passed away intestate, which is without a will, without an estate plan, or he had a will and an estate plan that did not mention Miss Lane. So let's go into the next layer, right? Let's go into she alleged to have worked for free as a nanny and a personal assistant for all of those years, right? Okay, so here's the thing. Technically, when Kobebryant says to Miss Lane, I'm going to take care of you, he's making what we call in the legal world. I'm going to see if I can put this in the chat, although I hate, no, because I hate that clickety clack. Hi to everyone in the chat. Hi, Diva Divine Light. How are you? So yes. So in the legal world, the kind of promise that Kobebryant made to Sophia Lane, we would call a gratuitous promise. So here's what a gratuitous promise is. It is a promise that is not legally binding. It's just me saying, oh, hey, KKC, you've been so good to me. I think you're such a great guy. If I ever win the lotto, I'll give you $50,000. And then let's say I win the lotto for 50 million the next week. There's no binding contract there. I made KKC what is called a gratuitous promise. And then I have the choice to either live up to that promise or not. So there are a lot of revolving, teachable legal issues in this lawsuit, right? You have the whole issue of dying without an estate plan and how dangerous that is, especially for people such as a Sophia Lane, who allegedly is relying on this person to take care of her, right? And then we also have the issue of gratuitous promises and when you can and can't hold someone to a promise. And that kind of promise, Sophia Lane actually could not hold Kobebryant to that promise. What probably happened, allegedly, is that because Sophia Lane is Vanessa Bryant's mother, Vanessa Bryant just decided, you know what? It's my mother. I'll give her something. That is probably, allegedly, what happened here. Okay. Hi to Crime Spotter. So I'm in the chat. If you have any questions about Kobebryant and his estate, or about his mother-in-law suing his wife, put them in the chat. I will take a moment to sip my coffee. If not, our next topic, I think we're going to go to Peppa. Is Peppa up next? I'm literally going to go in the order of the title that I gave this video. So let's see. So Kobebryant, Peppa. So Peppa from SaltNPepa is up next. So I'm just going to queue up our little details there while I keep checking the chat for any questions that any of you have. Oh, this is a rhymes with snitch link. Okay, well, I don't mind giving them the shout out, right? All righty. Okay, so I see Diva Divine Light is saying, so his mother-in-law is being petty too. Those children are hers as well. So very good point. You know, she is alleging that she deserves pay for taking care of her grandchildren. I mean, you know, it's an interesting concept. You know, I mean, grandparents do a lot of work. Should they be paid for their work? I don't know. I guess maybe it depends on what your financial prowess is, right? Perhaps. All right, so we are moving on to Peppa from SaltNPepa. Y'all, there has been so many celebrity lawsuits, celebrity arrest. I mean, this past like week or so ish that I've been gone. Notice how I'm making it less time than it actually was. There's been so much going on. So Peppa is being sued by a plastic surgeon. Let's get into that. As you know, whenever we have sources here, we always say some sources more veracity than others, right? But for our educational purposes, it is what it is. Okay. Crime Spotter says something that I have to highlight. He says, say no to people and see their reaction. Listen, everyone. If you're catching this on the replay, if you're here now, if you're in, you know, Kazakhstan, if you're on the moon, listen, this is a real life, real conversation moment. If you are a people pleaser and you are always saying yes, you should, for your own sake, try saying no more. And as Crime Spotter is saying, you're going to discover that there are many people in your life who you think may love you unconditionally, when in fact, their love has a whole lot of conditions, okay? And one of them being that you always say yes and that you're always at their beck and call. Just saying, whoever you are, if you know you're a people pleaser and you know you're always saying yes, give no a try. Give it a try and see if you might discover the true nature of some of the people in your life. All right, so share screen and let's get into Peppa being sued by her plastic surgeon. Okay, yes, this is a gossip channel. Okay, it's for educational purposes. Here we go. Plastic surgeon files a lien against Peppa. All right, so last year, SaltNPepa rapper Sandy Peppa Denton sued her plastic surgeon for a botched removal of butt implants after an Uber accident caused her butt to become misshapen. Interesting. Now, the plastic surgeon has filed a lien against Peppa after she refused to pay him to make sure he gets his money after she sued her Uber driver. Keep these things in mind because we're going to have a conversation about settlements and how sometimes a person who wins a settlement may have to share that settlement with other parties. We'll get to that. From Radar Online, according to court documents obtained by Radar, Beverly Hills plastic surgeon Dr. David Saya is demanding Denton cough up $676,675. Whoa, say that 10 times fast. 670. I won't even try. For his services, the doctor filed the lien as part of Denton's lawsuit against Uber over a car crash she was in. Saya wants to make sure he gets paid if Denton is awarded a dime in the suit against the ride-sharing company. The lien will allow him to collect if any judgment is entered in favor of the singer. Aha! So you hear how that works now. Can you all see me? Because I can't see anything. Interesting. All right, so you hear how that works now, right? So if you sue someone, let's say, God forbid, you know, individual A is hit by a car, and individual A then sues New York State taxi services, right? If individual A owes money to Chic L'Amour Incorporated can file a lien with the whatever court the lawsuit was filed in and say, hello, Judge. Hi, we are Chic L'Amour. We see that individual A is suing New York State taxi services for being hit by a car. Well, she owes us money. And so if in fact she garners anything at all from this lawsuit, we'd like to be paid out of her settlement. And they will receive their payment directly if the court accepts the lien and if individual A garners anything. So same concept for Peppa. If the court accepts this lien and Peppa does get anything from Uber, this plastic surgeon is going to get his $676,000, his tongue twister, right? He's going to get his money because he will have a valid lien and he will get his money directly from that settlement. Okay. Alrighty, I see some I see some funny comments in the chat. Diva's letting me know that you all could see me because I couldn't see myself for a moment. So I thought, I don't know. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or thoughts about Peppa, about liens on lawsuits? Crime Spotter has a question. He says, are settlements taxable and are they always cash? Can she get the settlement as Uber stock and not have it taxed or pay the other party either? Okay, so whether or not your settlement is taxable depends on the kind of cause of action that you have. So for example, in the state of New York, many workers' compensation settlements are totally untaxable, right? So it's literally this person is getting $500,000 or $600,000 directly in their hand, right? Now, the question as to whether or not you can have your settlement as stock, that's something that you could negotiate, right? So the beauty of settling, I think I prefaced this when I did my video about the fact that many attorneys should be more honest about the benefits of settlement versus litigation. So the beauty of settlement is the world is your oyster, right? Oyster. The parties could negotiate, I don't want a settlement in cash. I want a settlement in kind. I would like some equity in your company. I would like stock in your company, right? So for example, I'm actually representing a corporation at the moment that they are requesting as a part of their relief stock equity in the opposing company. So in my pleadings to the court, I let the court know, my client is not requesting that they receive monetary settlement. They're requesting settlement in kind. They want equity in that opposing company. So you can absolutely request that, and you can absolutely craft a settlement to include that kind of request. Any other questions about Peppa, about about cosmetic surgeons? Obviously, I need more coffee. Lawsuits or settlements? If not, we move on to CMurder. I don't see any other questions. Okay, so I'm going to prep up our CMurder info here. Let me give you guys a little preface, right, before we get into it. So if for some reason you're unfamiliar, hello, Michelle Jordan. If for some reason you're unfamiliar with CMurder, who he is and why he's a topic of discussion right now, he is the brother of Master P. He's one of the original No Limit soldiers, right, rappers. And whether or not this shows my age in a good or bad way, I am from that era where, we kind of admired No Limit. Like No Limit was cool. All the boys wanted to dress like them and, all of that stuff, right? So CMurder was a part of No Limit as Master P's brother. Now, for those of you who don't have an interest in No Limit folklore, as I do, because it is, it is my era, I'll give you this little tidbit. It was always rumored that CMurder was like a thorn in Master P's side, allegedly. It was always rumored that CMurder was a troublemaker, that he preferred to run the streets, allegedly, as opposed to doing a lot of the legitimate things that Master P, his older brother, wanted him to do. And so as the folklore goes, CMurder had a lot of friends and acquaintances and associates who were into a not so great lifestyle, allegedly. And this is how he ended up getting wrapped up in this conviction of murder. I think the victim The alleged victim was only 16 or 17 years old, right? The person who actually passed away. And CMurder is, of course, in prison for this murder conviction. He has always maintained his innocence. He has always maintained that he is innocent. And every so often, he throws a little alleged shade at Master P, kind of insinuating that perhaps enough isn't being done to have him released. Okay, so there's your backdrop. Now, what's going on now? So now CMurder is on a hunger strike. Okay. Now, for those of you who are kind of wondering what on earth is a hunger strike, because yes, not everyone is familiar with a hunger strike. A hunger strike is a form of protest. Usually it's more effective when used against some sort of government entity, right? So kind of like what CMurder is doing, what we're about to discuss. And the goal is just to make this statement of, I feel so strongly about something that I am willing to possibly perish for malnutrition, you know? So it's a strong statement. Okay, it's a strong statement. So let's get into it. I didn't have a little, something to dab, and I know that I have 5011 ring lights. You like that grammatical leisure there. All right, share screen. Here we go. So funny moment. Well, funny to me, but you guys know I'm a nerd. My aunt contacts me yesterday. She texts me yesterday. She is getting into my channel, and she says, Felicia, you need to make sure that all of your tabs are closed when you're going live. And I said, well, sometimes I have tabs open, but it's not crazy tabs. It's nothing, nothing out there. And I thought, did she see something? I said, did you see something weird? And I kind of panicked for a moment, and she was like, no, just saying. All right, so here we are on a local news channel. Again, I think, in my humble opinion, that local news channels are really a solid source of information. I think the higher up the quote unquote chain you get is kind of the more likely, when you're playing telephone, right? It's kind of the more likely that information gets misconstrued. Okay, so Louisiana rapper CMurder on hunger strike over COVID-19. Okay, but then it also says trial evidence. Oh, interesting. Is this a video about it? Did I click share audio? I would love to play this video. Oh, what happened there? I clicked an ad. You guys, the dangers of having adult ADD. I'm going to stop sharing just for one moment to make sure I share my audio so that when I do share, you guys can actually hear the video. Crime Spotter says, actually, Master P did a lot for him. And, people always say you never do enough. Didn't we just have that conversation? Didn't we just have the combo about the dangers of always saying yes and the power of no? All right, here we go. We have a little local ad.
And $1 million. If you've chosen to get the COVID-19 vaccine, you can enter to win one of 100,000.
DSC's Christina Watkins talked to the rapper. She's live in the newsroom with more on your conversation with him. Christina.
Guys, CMurder and I talked for about 15 minutes, and I asked him how he's made it through all these years. He told me his daughters keep him going. He also said he's grateful to all the fans who support him, and now he says he's grateful to that witness who came forward.
This is a call from a Louisiana Department of Corrections.
I'm not gonna lie, these last 16 years have been a struggle.
Corey Miller, known to many of you as CMurder, has spent more than a decade in prison, and up until a few days ago, he wasn't sure if he'd ever get out.
I've been snatched away from my family, from raising my kids, and from my career, from everything. And I just want it back.
A key witness came forward recanting his statement. In an affidavit, Kenneth Jordan said Jefferson Parish deputies pressured him to lie by holding an unrelated charge over his head. Jordan said he knew Miller did not shoot and kill a teenager 16 years ago, but he said detectives told him to say otherwise. Now, all these years later, Jordan says he wants to right his wrong, and Miller forgives him.
I want him to know I'm not upset with him, and I'm proud of him. And me and my family, my daughters especially, we thank him. For real, I mean, it's a life-changing moment.
He says for the first time in a while, he has hope that he may not die in prison. and he's glad his family, friends, and fans continue to fight for his justice.
I don't know, it has this since I've been locked up for 16 years. And I just want them to know that my heart is fine.
And CMurder also told me, despite everything that's happened, he says he's not bitter. He also says he still has faith in the justice system, and he hopes the system will do the right thing. CMurder told me until that happens, he's going to do what he's done these last 16 years. That is wait, pray, and hope for the best. Live in the newsroom, Christina Watkins. Scott, back to you.
Christina, thanks. Here's the backstory behind the sentencing. In 2002, 16-year-old Steve Thomas was killed in a nightclub in Jefferson Parish. Days later, Miller was arrested and charged for the killing with second-degree murder. In 2003, a jury found him guilty of that charge, but the judge overturned the conviction. In 2009, during the retrial, Miller was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
All righty, so let's get into this information about the hunger strike, and then we'll have a convo about it all, okay? So a Louisiana rapper is on a hunger strike at the Elaine Hunt Correctional Center in St. Gabriel over concerns about COVID-19 and the status of his trial. So it's both. It's COVID and his legal issues. Family members of Corey Miller, who records and performs as CMurder, said he had been placed in dorms with COVID-19 inmates. The family said Miller has told them this has resulted in abnormally long quarantine times and an increased the positive COVID-19 cases in the jail. A statement from Miller's attorneys Benjamin Crump and Ronald Haley Jr. says DOC and the Hunt warden are not enforcing the mask mandate or requiring employees to get vaccinated. No one in the state of Louisiana is sentenced to contract nor die from COVID-19, the statement says. Miller's family also alleges that on top of inadequate health care, Jefferson Parish District Attorney withheld documents and evidence. They are alleging that Jefferson Parish District Attorney Paul Connick's office, they declined to comment on the allegations. Okay, and they get into his sentence. And of course, we have a statement here from his actual attorney, Ronald Haley. And his attorney talks about the fact that he has, CMurder has national civil rights lawyers, Benjamin Crump, which if you haven't heard of Benjamin Crump, he is a very well-known civil rights lawyer, right? And they are both representing CMurder as he is alleging that his civil rights are being violated by the lack of COVID protections in the institution that they have him staying in. And you see this official correspondence here, okay? So let me get back into the chat. All right, so Crime Spotter says that he heard that CMurder once said, you can take the person out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of the person. I wonder if he said that. Oh, he said he saw him say it. So yeah, I guess he said it. Interesting mindset to have. So let's start off with COVID-19, shall we? So did you all know that you do have the constitutional right to actually live your life unburdened by the imposition of others, right? So when you hear that you have this right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, it is an actual thing. It is written in the Constitution, and you have the right to your life, to living your life. The only way you forfeit that right is if, you somehow are sentenced to death, right? That is the only way you forfeit your right to life, is by being sentenced to death via a prosecution. So CMurder literally has the constitutional right to his life. And he is alleging that that constitutional right is being violated by being forced to be in this prison where no one is taking COVID-19 mandates seriously, where no one is wearing a mask, where no one is vaccinated, et cetera, right? So CMurder is actually saying my civil rights, my constitutional right to live is being challenged by me being here, right? And now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this argument, let me tell you, this argument, this same argument that is being made, has gotten a lot of prisoners released. Quite a few. I personally drafted several motions in opposition to extradition, which were seriously, considered to be a large factor in the release of these inmates. The court really takes it seriously when someone says, I was given a sentence that was, 5 to 8 or, 15 to 20. But because the people in this prison are not protecting me from COVID, it's like I've been sentenced to death. I'm being sentenced to death by COVID. The court does take that seriously, usually. But you have to remember that he's in the state of Louisiana. And so you don't really know what could happen. There are certain states, and I say this with love because if you all know me, you know I'm a Florida girl. I'm originally from Florida. So I say this with love. Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi. They play by their own rules, right? They play by their own rules. So all over the country, judges are taking this COVID-19 argument seriously, and they are releasing inmates in mass whenever inmates can make a valid argument that they're being subjected to execution by COVID, right? But Louisiana is one of those states that marches to the beat of their own drum. So never know what you're going to get, right? Never know what you're going to get. Diva says, R. Kelly got vaccinated, so he can't use the COVID excuse anymore. Well, I mean, don't take that off the table. Aren't there, there's a variant. There's tons of things going on out there, allegedly, that isn't covered by the current vaccination options. So don't count that out. So we know that's the first part of his hunger strike, right? Is COVID. But now let's get into the second part. So he's been in prison for 16 years, you guys. And now the eyewitness is recanting. The eyewitness that was instrumental in him being convicted and him spending 16 years in prison has now recanted his identification of CMurder as the man who allegedly murdered this 16-year-old. So can anyone in the chat think of a way that this could not work out in CMurder's favor? Because, the obvious perspective is, well, the witness has recanted. So, who else can validate that CMurder did what he was accused of? But let's put on our devil's advocate hat so that we can see the full picture, right? So does anyone have any sort of inclination of how it is that this witness recanting could actually not work in CMurder's favor? I'll give you all a moment to sit on that before I, of course, present to you said argument. But in the meantime, I'd like to see your thoughts. What are your thoughts on that? Can you think of any way in which this witness changing his story and saying, no, it wasn't actually CMurder that I saw shoot that young man, allegedly? Can you think of any way in which that maybe wouldn't work for CMurder? I'll take a moment. My Montreal mug. Montreal is a beautiful city if you've never been. If you're catching this in the replay, can you think of any way that maybe this wouldn't work out for him? And have you been to Montreal? Beautiful city if you have not. Are they open? I don't know. So here is the answer to my question. Here's the answer to how, in fact, this witness recanting may not be, the saving grace for CMurder. Here's how. I'm going to put it in the chat, although I hate the clackety clack. Bear with me on the clack clacks, okay? Witness credibility. Okay, I think I spelled that correctly. When I go live, you guys, I have contacts in, and with all the lights, hey, it's like I'm in a disco ball. Witness credibility. Witness credibility. So if you remember nothing about witnesses, remember this. A witness's credibility is always relevant. A witness's credibility is always relevant. So now 16 years ago, this witness testified that he saw CMurder allegedly murder this young man. Now, 16 years later, he's saying, that's not what I saw. I said what I said because I was influenced to do so because of this other case that I had going on, and et cetera, and all of these things that he's saying now, right? And at the outset, it appears to be helpful to CMurder, but it hurts this witness's credibility. It doesn't matter which side of the pendulum you're swinging to. Whenever you have a witness that is recanting, whether it favors this side or that side, you've got a problem. Because the first thing that any court is going to say is, can I trust this witness at all? Were you telling the truth back then? Or are you telling the truth now? Can I trust you at all? Witness credibility. It's always relevant. So are there any questions about CMurder's case, witnesses recanting, and criminal appeal process? Any questions like that before I move into our next topic, which is actually a subscriber requested topic? Hello, I am Queen. How are you? I love that name, by the way. Good afternoon to you as well. All right, so I don't see any questions about CMurder, so we're going to hop into our subscriber requested topic. I hope she does not mind me saying that she requested this topic, but I want to give her a shout out. Shout out to Yvonne Diva. This is her topic request. So Yvonne Diva wanted to know, well, let me not paraphrase. Let's read it directly, shall we? You guys, my phone has been so weird. And I don't know what's going on with it. It's so strange. All right. I'm literally going to read her question verbatim. Here we go. Yvonne Diva. Here's her question. I'd like to know how people with 4, 5, 7+ felonies on their record get to walk the streets after committing several serious crimes. This in itself has led to quite a few murders by these same ex-cons lately. Criminals who legitimately should have still been in prison. When did our laws become so lax? What happened to severe sentences for felonies? Well, Yvonne Diva, I am about to answer your question. So I'm about to talk about a law that I know is going to be familiar to everyone because it was popularized in several movie depictions. So we are going to talk about the 3 strikes law. Now, the 3 strikes law used to be something that was pretty ironclad all across the country. And it was really derived from this need to do what Yvonne is kind of insinuating, right? To try to take someone who is a recidivist and who kind of shows this nature to commit the same crimes over and over and give them a harsher punishment in the hope that it would deter them from continuing to commit those same crimes. However, over the years, many jurisdictions have either repealed their 3 strikes laws or reduced them, or loosened them, kind of as Yvonne said, right? Made them more lax. Now, there's a deeper question there, right? We know that these laws have been rolled back, but the deeper question is why? So I have a treat for you. I have prepared for you a little conversation on why it is that a lot of these 3 strikes laws have been rolled back. Okay, so let me cue that up for you. And I'll be introducing you to a new website and a new organization if you're not familiar with the ACLU. They're a great org to know and to know about. They do a lot of great work, right? Okay. Oh, Crime Spotter did have a CMurder question. I'm sorry. Let me jump back and answer that very quickly. So Crime Spotter wants to know if CMurder could sue when he gets out. Yes, if it is decided that he was wrongfully convicted, Absolutely, he can sue. And yes, he would be suing the state. He would be suing the DA. If the city had anything to do with his arrest, he could also sue them as well, because technically, you can make the argument that all law enforcement involved has some role in paying him recompense, right? In giving him a remedy for the injury that he suffered. All right, so share screen, because now we're going to get into what happened to the 3 strikes rule. What happened to 3 strikes and you're out? Where are we on that? Let's talk about it. Per request of Miss Yvonne Diva. All right, so here we go. So we are here on aclu.org, and the the ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union, as you see here on their website. And they are an organization that focuses on the enforcement of the everyday person's civil rights. So as I said, a great organization to know about, a great org to maybe get involved in if you want to get involved, right? So here on aclu.org, we have an article titled 10 Reasons to Oppose 3 Strikes You're Out. Now, this article is going to outline the arguments that were effectively used for all the rollbacks. So remember, I explained that we used to have widespread 3 strikes you're out. But in recent years, that 3 strikes law has been rolled back in a lot of states. And these arguments that we're about to address, they cover the reason why, okay? 10 reasons to oppose 3 strikes you're out. The American public is alarmed about crime, and with good reason. Our crime rate is unacceptably high, and many Americans feel like prisoners in their own homes, afraid to venture out for fear of becoming another statistic. For more than the past 20 years, state and federal crime control policies have been based on the belief that harsh sentencing laws will deter people from committing crimes. Pause. There are many, many different, I think I might stop screen share so we can talk about this. So there are many, many different mindsets and policies behind law enforcement and corrections. One of them is deterrence, right? So it's the idea that if I give someone a harsh punishment, then that person will no longer do whatever it is that I don't want them to do. So it's the basic, of course, I don't have COVID, y'all. I just got tested to get back into the country. Anyway, so it's that basic idea. It's the same discipline a parent uses with a child, right? It's, I'm going to punish Felicia for staying out late. And I think that if I punish her hard enough, it will deter her from doing that again. But here's where it gets complicated in society, everyone. If a person is stealing because they needed to eat, so they stole some food to eat, if someone needs clothing and so they stole a shirt to wear, right? Deterrence doesn't work as well because that person was not acting out or behaving badly just for the sake of acting out, right? That person is doing things they need to do, allegedly, to survive. So that is the combating argument for deterrence and why many people say deterrence doesn't work. Because they say deterrence only works on people who are committing crime because they feel like it, not on someone who is committing a crime to allegedly survive. Okay, I nerded out. I have my nerd moments. All right, so let's get back into our 3 strikes you're out article. Okay, so here goes the 3 reasons. Here we go. 1, 3 strikes is an old law dressed up in new clothes. Although its supporters act as if it is something new, 3 strikes is really just a variation of an old theme. States have had habitual offender laws and recidivist statutes for years. The 1987 federal sentencing guidelines and mandatory minimum sentencing laws in most states are also very tough on repeaters. Teaching moment? Yes, that is true. Every single state has habitual offender or recidivist law. And it is almost guaranteed that if a defendant is committing a certain crime for the 2nd or 3rd or 4th or 5th time, they're going to get a harsher sentence than their first offense. Okay. Second, 3 strikes laws won't deter most violent crimes. Its supporters claim that 3 strikes laws will have a deterrent effect on violent crime. But these laws will probably not stop many criminals from committing violent acts. For one thing, most violent crimes are not premeditated. They are committed in anger, in the heat of passion, or under the influence of alcohol. Pause. I don't know that to be true, so I have to say that. But I also don't know it to be untrue, right? So I cannot say either way whether this is true or not. And again, let's have that moment where we remember our source. Remember, the ACLU is a big advocate of civil rights. So they are going to take a more liberal stance, okay? Whether or not most violent crimes are committed in the heat of passion, we don't know either way, okay? Third, 3 strikes laws could lead to an increase in violence. Many law enforcement professionals oppose the 3 strikes law out of fear that such laws would spur a dramatic increase in violence against police, correction officers, and the public. A criminal facing the prospect of a mandatory life sentence will be far more likely to resist arrest, to kill witnesses, or to attempt a prison escape. Teaching moment. This statement actually has some validity. So I know you're thinking, wow, I thought movies were lying to me, but movies don't always lie to you, right? Sometimes they tell the truth. So when you see these movies where defendants who are facing life in prison are willing to mow down 5 or 6 police officers to get away, are willing to kill witnesses so they can't testify, right? These things truly do happen. When someone is facing this, 3 strike style life in prison, they get desperate. And people, let me tell you, a desperate person is a dangerous person. Okay, for real. Fourth reason, the 3 strikes law will clog the courts. The criminal courts already suffer from serious backlogs. The extraordinarily high arrest rates resulting from the war on drugs have placed enormous burdens on prosecutors, defense lawyers, and judges whose caseloads have grown exponentially over the past decade. 3 strikes laws will make a bad situation even worse. Faced with a mandatory life sentence, repeat offenders will demand costly and time-consuming trials. Interesting point. Remember, when you're facing life in prison, and I shouldn't say you because, goodness forbid. So remember, when someone is facing life in prison, once you have, again, your constitutional right to life being taken away or being reduced in some way, you have more protection, which means what? More appeals that you could file, more arguments that you could make, more avenues for clemency and pardon. So yes, this type of sentence does create potentially, possibly some sort of extra burden upon the system included. 5, 3 strikes laws will take all sentencing discretion away from judges. I don't know if I agree with that. Okay, let's see. The 3 strikes proposals differ from most habitual offender laws in that they make life sentences without parole mandatory. Thus, they tie the hands of judges who have traditionally been responsible for weighing both mitigating, remember, mitigating, if you're not new here, is what? Mitigating, to make less, right? To make something less, to mitigate. And aggravating, to make something worse, to make something more, right? Circumstances before imposing a sentence. So they're saying here, usually a judge has leeway to use their judicial wisdom, right? All of their education and wisdom to make the right decision. But these 3 strikes laws takes that decision away from the judge and kind of gives the judge really no choice. Now, this statement, again, is on the liberal side because it's the ACLU. And so I have to be that moderate person to come in and have a talk with you, okay? 3 strikes laws are not all created equal. They're not all written the same, and they're not all this harsh. Many of the 3 strikes laws that are currently on the books now are not this harsh. It's not just automatic life sentence without parole, and the judge has absolutely no discretion. That's not the widespread truth. Now, are there some jurisdictions in which the 3 strikes rule works that way? Yes, but not all. Okay. Alrighty, 6. The cost of imprisoning 3-time losers for life will be prohibitively high. Now, we don't even have to dive into these numbers to know how much it costs to maintain a United States of America inmate for the pendency of their life. Okay, it costs millions of dollars per inmate. Number 7, 3 strikes will have a disproportionate impact on minority offenders. Interesting. Racial bias in the criminal justice system is rampant. African American men, in particular, are overrepresented in all criminal justice statistics: arrest, victimizations, incarceration, and executions. Okay. We got to pause this here because now we have to have another real life moment. I'm showing you my face, right? So we can really have this combo. Now, is it true that African American men are overrepresented in the criminal justice system? Yes. Yes. So let's talk about how that happens. One of the ways in which that happens is that neighborhoods, communities, areas that are more heavily minority populated tend to be more heavily policed. So here's a brief example. I think I may have given you guys this NYCHA, New York City housing trespassing example before, but let's do it again, okay? Now, any building in New York City has some sort of rule against trespassing, right? You can't just hang out in the building or hang out or loiter outside of the building. However, bye to Diva Divine Light. See you later. However, a Caucasian person who might or might not be trespassing, in a building in a swanky area in Manhattan may or may not, I'm going to leave this up to you, be facing a different likelihood of policing, right? Because there's not the same kind of police presence as an African-American male who's loitering in a NYCHA building in Harlem, right? Because that police presence is heavy and constant. So it's not that either one is doing something that is okay. Let me be clear. Both people are trespassing. Both the African-American male and the Caucasian male are doing something they allegedly, technically, legally should not be doing. But because there is more police presence in Harlem, there is statistically a higher likelihood that the African-American male in Harlem gets picked up for the offense that perhaps the Caucasian in Manhattan didn't get picked up for, right? So that's the mindset, and that's the kind of details that can account for, why African-American males are allegedly overrepresented in the criminal justice system. It may not necessarily be, whether one group is committing certain acts more than the other. And it may actually come down to who's being more heavily policed. Just some food for thought there. However, I have to say this while we are here discussing this. It is still a bad idea to do anything illegal. Whether you are in a neighborhood where there's tons of police presence or none, it is still not advisable for you to do something that is illegal. Novel idea, I know. All right, I am going to hop back into our ACLU 10 reasons, and then we're going to close it out. I'm going to take any leftover questions, and then I'll be out of here. All righty, number 8. 3 strikes laws will impose life sentences on offenders whose crimes don't warrant such harsh punishment. Interesting. Okay. So the 3 strike sponsors claim that their purpose is to protect society from only the most dangerous felons. However, many 3 strikes proposals encompass a broad range of criminal conduct, from rape to minor assaults. You guys know we usually don't say that word, but yeah, I would think that rape is a pretty serious crime. Again, remember, I'm going to come in here with some moderation. Okay, this is an interesting perspective, but I don't know that I can personally, in my humble opinion, agree with the statement that rape isn't serious. Okay. 9, let the punishment fit the crime, a constitutional principle. Okay, so the idea that you have a constitutional right for your punishment to fit your crime, regardless of how many times you have allegedly committed this crime. And then 10, the last argument is 3 strikes laws are not a serious response to crime. 3 strikes proposals are based on the mistaken belief that focusing on an offender after the crime has been committed with harsh sentencing will lead to a reduction in the crime rate. But if 34 million serious crimes are committed each year in the US and only 3 million result in arrest, something must be done to prevent these crimes from happening in the first place. An interesting perspective. So the ACLU and the people who oppose I had to check my arm, who oppose the 3 strikes laws make these 10 arguments, right? They argue that, in fact, it's not actually doing anything to solve the problem. And that's, Yvonne Diva, is why these laws have been rolled back. And so I hope that I have answered your question. If not, let me know, if you're catching us on the replay. And what say you? If you're catching us on the replay, what do you think about everything that we've discussed today? I mean, have you ever been in any way involved with this 3 strikes law? Do you know anyone who has suffered under it? Do you think that this 3 strikes law is a good idea that actually protects us? Or do you agree with the people that are rolling back on that law and saying, you know what, it's not actually useful, it does more harm than good? What say you out there in YouTube land? What do you think about 3 strikes, you're out? Does it do any good or no? And keeping in mind that there are so many revolving issues when you talk about incarceration and you talk about punishment and deterrence and recidivism, because there's a psychological impact there that I think, in my humble opinion, no one is really addressing. Okay. So listen, it's been an hour. It has been amazing to be back with you. I've missed you, but listen, we all got to have a life, like #lawyers have lives too. So I had to get out there and live a bit, and I did, and now I'm back with you. So I will see you again next week. I am actually going to be on Diva Divine Light's channel. Oh my goodness, I think Wednesday? I have to check on that, but I will be on Diva Divine Light's channel this week, discussing some developments in the R. Kelly case, right? Thank you, KKC. #lawyers have lives too. We go on vacation. We're real people. We don't go to sleep in a suit, like that's totally not the thing. We have real lives. But anywho, legal life lessons. I'm messing up my own tagline. Life lessons through a legal lens. So what did we learn today? 1, witness credibility is always relevant. And so a witness recanting, not always a good thing. And 2, pay your bills, okay? If you're going to be getting plastic surgery and all these other things, pay them or else they're going to come a knocking. And 3rd, the 3rd strikes law has a very, very heavy debate going on right now. And no matter what side you're on, we've learned that it is just best to avoid doing things that are illegal at all cost. Okay? Alrighty, so I will see you guys next time here on Empowered Esquire TV. See ya.